This course 2 titled American Literature. So I'm just mentioning it just so you know that you're in the right class. Okay, I'll be taking you through the course book, which I hope everybody already has. My name is Ashwin. I have been associated with P.R. Ambedkar Open University as a counselor for a few years now. Okay, before we go into the course book, let us first list some instructions for this class. These instructions are only for American literature class, and other counselors might have other instructions. So these are just for this class. Please be on time. I know it is not always possible, but try your best to be on time. I know that you will have to be attending back-to-back classes from 10 till late in the evening. So try and be on time. Please keep your cell phones on mute and yourself also on mute unless you have something to say. Just check regularly that you're on mute because sometimes, we just forget that we are on mute and start talking. And then this class will be participatory. It's not one-sided. It is not just me talking, but I would appreciate if all of you, if not all, most of you can participate in the discussion. It's more of a discussion than anything else. If possible, keep your video on. It's up to you, your personal preference. I don't have to talk to a computer screen if I can see you. So if it's possible, then keep your videos on. Post questions in the chat box or unmute and speak. Right now, everybody is muted, I think, except for me. So please feel free to post your questions in the chat box as in when you have it. And at the end of the class, we will go through the chat box and then see if I can answer any of those questions. Okay. Okay. Can somebody again confirm that you're able to hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay. The one on the screen, that's your course book for American literature. It has 5 blocks and 20 units. Okay. We have about 8 classes to cover these 5 blocks and 20 units. 1 second. Let me open the contents page.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, we have, like I said, we have 5 blocks and we have 20 units and we have 8 classes to cover. So we'll cover multiple units in one class. And sometimes if it's very, not complicated, but then if it's very exhaustive, then we will cover one particular unit in one class. Okay, we'll see how it goes. So block 1 is introduction. We will talk about what are the major themes in American literature. We will discuss what American literature is all about and how did it start. And then we will talk about 2 ages, which are Age of Reason and Revolution, and we will talk about the Romantic Age. And you should probably already know that some of the ages that we talk about or some of the time periods that we talk about in American literature kind of sort of are the same in British literature also. You have a paper called British Literature, right?
Positive way.
Sorry, can you go a little?
టాప్ మార్కెట్ అని ఉంటది ఆమె పార్ట్నర్ గా తీసుకుంటారు
Vijay Lakshmi, can you please mute yourself?
కంపెనీకి ఇంటర్వ్యూకి వచ్చినట్టు
Sir, we have survey of British literature, sir.
Okay.
వేసుకొని వచ్చారు అట్లా వచ్చేటప్పుడు అంటున్నారు
Somebody is talking. I don't think it's,
Yes, sir, you can continue.
yeah, I can't continue until we stop talking. Then does anybody know Vijay Lakshmi's number or something? Or let me mute everybody. Hold on.
వైస్ ప్రెసిడెంట్ ఉంటుంది సేల్స్ లా ఆమె చేసి ఇంతకుముందు వేసి ఉంటుంది ఇంకా
Okay, it looks like I can't mute Vijay Lakshmi. I hope that she...
Sir, please
hears
mute
us.
all.
Yeah, I'm unable to do that. That's the whole point. Hold on. Let me see if I can do this.
హలో
ఏమైతుంది నీకు అట్లా
Okay.
Sir,
Anyway,
co-host can
we'll
also
just
do
we'll
that, sir.
just continue and we'll see if hopefully she will stop. You can still see my screen, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. All right. So like I said, we have 5 units, 5 blocks in 20 units. We will talk about introduction, then we'll move on to fiction. We'll talk about American fiction in particular, and then we will talk about the American short story. We will talk about an extremely famous author called Edgar Allan Poe. He's one of the most famous, in fact, short story writers in the American fiction area. Then we'll talk about 19th century American fiction, then 20th century American novel. We'll talk again about two extremely good authors and great authors, Ernest Hemingway and then William Faulkner. Then we'll talk about contemporary fiction. That will kind of sort of finish the block two. Then we'll talk about poetry. This is around like fourth class or fifth class. We'll start up poetry. We'll talk about introduction to American poetry. We'll talk about Walt Whitman. We'll talk about Dickinson. We'll talk about other poets like Wallace Stevens, Robert Frost. You already probably know who Robert Frost is, but anyway. Then we'll talk about contemporary poetry. After fiction and poetry, we'll move to drama. We'll talk about introduction to drama. We will deal with Eugene O'Neill's Desire Under the Elms, then Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, then contemporary drama. The last block is very interesting because it talks about recent trends in American literature. Now, recent trends doesn't mean that these are like from the last year or previous year or something of that sort. Recent trends are probably at the starting of the 21st century. Okay, so from 2000 onwards, what are the trends? The trends are women's voices. We'll talk about Jewish writing. Jewish writing basically is writing done by Jewish authors. We'll talk about Saul Bellow, we'll talk about others, and then we will end the course with African American literature. Okay, then we will see in the last class, we'll see if we have any questions or anything of that. So, okay.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, today we'll deal with unit one, block one, unit one. We will talk about what exactly is American literature. Our objective today is to learn the uniqueness of American literature. We'll talk about the major themes of this type of literature. What exactly is American literature? What do people write in American literature? Why do we call it American literature? These are the questions that we'll discuss. We will also look at something called Americanness, which will be dealt with across the units and chapters, not just in today's class. So what we will do is we will define what Americanness is, we will define what American dream is, and then we will kind of sort of have it at the back of our mind and then start thinking about it for the whole course. Okay. And at the end of the course, we will discuss whether Americanness is there in American literature or not. Okay. All right. Before going into American literature, the first question that we'll have to ask ourselves is, what is literature in the first place? Do you have any ideas? What is literature? What do we call as literature? Anybody?
The written novels, fictions,
Novel. Okay.
dramas, stories, movies,
Movies. Very, very good.
oral,
Okay. Movies. We'll talk about movies, but you said novels and then what? Srujan Kumar, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Poetry and
Novels. Yeah, go on.
Specifically, those have artistic or intellectual values. Written work is called literature.
Okay. Artistic or intellectual values, written works. Perfect. Okay. Anything
It
else?
also includes about the history, sir, past, what they
Well,
did.
I mean, it has many genres.
Okay.
Short
Many
story also.
genres, history. Good. Very, very good
uh,
inputs. Okay.
Short,
Yeah, what else?
short stories also, sir.
like imaginative works of poets also.
Okay.
Not
So it's the reflection of
experience.
life, sir.
Not experience.
Perfect. Okay.
Prose.
Okay, all very good definitions. But one
It's
definition is very interesting, which is, I think, given by Srujan Kumar. We will talk
They,
about that. He mentioned this word movies, but we will talk about whether movies can be considered literature or not. But broad definition is any collection of written work. So prose, drama, poetry, all come under literature. Okay.
yes.
But then somebody also said it is written literature, right? So what about oral literature? Can oral literature be considered literature? Or, let's say a tribal literature. Let's say they don't have a script to write. Can we call that literature, or is that not
Yes, sir.
literature?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
that is
we can
also
consider
literature.
oral literature.
I think it is
No.
only written, sir, not oral.
Yes.
Literature is written thing.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
written work.
Okay. Sajid, is that Sajid?
Yeah, it's Mr.
Okay. Okay. Sajid is saying literature should always be written. Do we all agree with that? Or can there be something called oral literature?
Sir, before literature came, the
Ah,
the earlier only oral literature was there.
only
I don't
oral
think it was
literature was
called
there.
as literature then.
Yes, that is also considered as a literature.
Okay. Okay. So, Sajid said it's only written literature. Somebody else is saying it can be oral also. Okay. Now, if you go by the book, Rebecca, can you just hold off with sending the chat thing? You can do it at the end of the class. Yeah. Um, the broad definition is basically any
Sure,
collection of
sure. Okay,
written
sir.
work.
I'll
Yeah.
do that.
Thank you. Thank you. So any written work, so prose, drama, poetry, all come under literature. And then it depends on, see, this is the beauty of literature. There is no objective answer to what is literature. It depends on who you ask. Like if you ask Sajid, he will say that only written work is literature. But if you ask somebody else, then they will say, no, 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 written literature, written work as well as oral is also considered literature. If you go and ask Srujan, then he will say, no, it's not just oral and written, but movies can also be considered literature, right? So it depends on who you ask. The reason why it changes is because literature as a quote unquote major genre keeps changing day by day. It's not static, right? It's very variable. That's why. Now, if you talk about oral folk literature, some people say, yes, that is also. Hold on 1 second. Okay, yeah. Okay, some people say that is also literature. Okay, where's my, okay, yeah. Now, what about electronic literature? So, Sajid, so I'm thinking of like documentary films or digital works. Okay, what if there is an ebook? Okay, I as an author, let's say I wrote something, novel or something, but I have not published it as written work, like a physical book. What if I just make an ebook out of it? Can you call it literature, or will you call it something else?
Yes, it is literature.
It is okay. Meghna says it's literature. Okay. Okay. Good. Like I said, you will have to, as students of literature, you will have to, it doesn't matter if it's English literature, American literature, or whatever, as students of literature, you will have to think what constitutes literature in the first place. And then what we'll have to understand at the initial outset is that the definition itself is changing. The definition of literature itself is changing as we progress towards time. Okay. So you'll have to keep that in mind. Okay. Now we know what literature is. Now let us discuss what is American literature. When we say like Telugu literature, it is literature written in Telugu, right? What is Hindi literature? Literature written in Hindi. What is Gujarati literature? Literature written in Gujarati. But if somebody asks you, what is Indian literature? You can't say it is literature written in Indian because Indian is not a language, right? So what is Indian literature?
It's India's literary work written.
Culture.
Can you say it again, Sajid?
The literary work of India written. Might be
Our
called Indian literature.
tradition, culture.
Again, it includes all the
Yes.
genres.
Okay. Okay. Good. Yeah. I totally agree. It will span across all the genres.
Uh,
And yeah, what was Sridevi saying? Sridevi, can you repeat it?
the culture, our traditions.
Okay. Culture, traditions. Okay. Yasmin says it could be
Languages,
work by
diversity.
Indians. Okay. There's an interesting
Literature.
answer by
Our way
Yasmin.
of living,
Okay.
our way of talking.
Okay.
So literature written by the Indian writers is called Indian literature, sir.
Okay. 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 That's one definition. Okay. Now, it's kind of sort of the same with American literature. The problem with these, words describing Indian literature and American literature is, again, there is no proper answer. There is no answer that everybody agrees to. Okay. Similarly, when somebody says American literature, we can't say it is literature written in American because American is not a language, right? But at the same time, we can't say everything written in English is American literature.
Literature written about the America is called American literature, sir.
Very good definition. Okay, about the America. Now we will talk about that one word, about America. What is about America? We will talk about it in a few minutes. Okay, we'll just hold on to that thought. Okay, for a few minutes. Okay, Ruchita says the Indian literature also includes work like epics such as Ramayana, Mahabharata. Okay, very good. That's correct. But that's not the only thing that is included in Indian literature. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Okay. But then immediately you'll have a question, what makes something American literature? Okay, somebody said something written about America is American literature, but that
No,
might be
sir, by
just one answer.
American writers.
American writers. Okay. So Sridevi, I'll give you one example. So let's say I am an Indian, I go to US,
Yes.
okay, and then I write, sitting in US at my desk, I write something. Is that American literature or Indian literature?
So writing
Sir, you
about
write
American
about
literature.
No, the
Indian
authors in the American
I think it's all about what you are writing.
yes, it depends on what you're writing about and who you're writing about.
Okay, it depends. Okay. So you're saying I as an Indian go to US and sit there and then write about the US people. Okay, let's say Americans, then it becomes American literature. That's what you're saying, right?
An Indian point of view about America.
An Indian, sorry, Rebecca, can you be a little louder?
It is you as an Indian point of view or
An
whatever you're
Indian point
writing.
of view about
Yeah,
America.
about America.
About American. Okay, that is American literature.
I think
Okay.
irrespective of a person, he may belong to any place, but he's writing for particular countries. For example, America, that becomes American literature.
Okay. Okay. Ruchita says the common styles in American literature are politics, economics,
Sir,
and social
what is
studies.
the difference between Indian American and American literature?
Yeah, we will talk about Indian American literature in the next class, I think. Okay, those are they are called Native Americans. Okay, we'll talk about that in the next class. So hold on to that thought for one more day. All right, we'll
Yeah,
discuss
okay,
that.
sir.
Okay. Okay, these are all good answers. Okay, while this is kind of sort of okay, it is not completely true. Okay, that is my opinion. So think of this. If you as an Indian, like I said, go to US and write about something, will it be American literature just because it is produced in the US? Because it is talking about the US? Some people are of the opinion that as long as it talks about American themes, then it is American literature. But what are American themes? Are there themes which are just specific to America? These are the questions that you'll have to think about when you think about what is American literature is. And like I said, there is no right or wrong answer. It is basically what we think of. Okay. Another question we have to think about is American literature only written in English or some other language? Okay, Sujata says the body of written works produced in the English language in United States. Does everybody agree with that? Is American literature only written in English?
Sir, I think it is also
It
in
may not.
Latin.
It might
It
be
may not.
written
It
in
may
any
not.
language, sir.
Sorry, Chetan, can you repeat it?
I think it is also in Latin language.
It is also in, you mean Spanish or Latin?
Latin.
Latin. Okay. Okay. Okay.
It
I
might
think
be
it
any
can be done in
language.
any language because if
Right.
somebody is reading, I mean, in Telugu, from the
Right.
Telugu belt, he wants to understand American literature, definitely can't read English. So it can be done in Telugu also.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the popular opinion is basically the American literary tradition is part of this broader tradition of English language literature, but it also includes literature produced in languages other than English. Like Sajid said, it can be in Telugu, like Chetan said, it can be in Spanish or Latin or any other language also, as long as it conforms to certain criteria. Now, what are those criteria? We will talk about it. Now, to understand what American literature is, we have to understand what the American experience is. Okay, we as Indians, I'm assuming that all of us on this call, all of us are Indians in this, and we don't have any Americans on this, excuse me, in the call. So we as Indians, we'll have to first understand what the American experience is. Okay, can you hold on 1 second? Let me just quickly, I was asked to take a screenshot. So Okay, we'll have to talk about something called an American dream. Okay, you might have heard this in Hollywood movies or in the books that you have read. There's something called an American dream. Now, if somebody comes and asks you, is there an Indian dream? Can all of us have the same dream? Some people might say, I want money and then I want to have a big bungalow and then, I want to drive a Mercedes. That is my dream. And somebody else might say, no, it doesn't matter. Money and these things don't matter. I want something else. I want to grow spiritually or philosophically or something else. So we all don't have the same dream. You agree?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
In a similar fashion, if you think, is it possible to have an American dream? Like all the people in America will have the same dream?
No.
Okay, no. We are saying no, but then there is this one person called Vernon Parrington, who is a literary historian. He defines American dream. Okay, he says, I'm quoting Parrington here. He says, the promise of a better, richer, and happier life for all our citizens of every rank. Okay, I'll repeat this. Parrington says, this is the dream, American dream is basically the promise of a better, richer, and happier life for all our citizens of every rank. But we immediately have a problem with this definition because, the words better, happier, richer, all these are very subjective, right? I mean, it can't be the same thing for everybody. I can say I'm rich when I have, 50 lakhs in my bank account. Somebody else might say that is not enough. You need 15 crores in the bank account. So all these are so subjective. But then you'll have to understand that there is one person at least who has defined an American dream. Like I said, all these are subjective. Can everybody go on mute, please, unless you're talking? Bhargavi, can you please go on mute? Okay. Okay, thank you. Now, we were talking about American dream and it's very subjective. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. All this is, very subjective. But American literature, so if we have to define it, we will say American literature is the expression of the American dream. Okay, whatever the American dream is, it can be something else. We will talk about, as we progress in the course, we will talk about what are the major themes of American literature. Then we will understand what American literature is. Okay, so don't try to understand what American literature is in the first class, but we will come back to this question in the last class and then kind of discuss this question again. And then if we can come up with a definition of what American dream is, then this course is successful. Okay. Okay, and one point we'll have to remember is that American literature, somebody is asking class started or not, please inform me. I can see 113 participants. So can somebody please respond to this person that the class has already started? Okay. One point we'll have to remember is that American literature, especially the earlier literature, has been heavily influenced by religion. Okay, especially Christianity in particular. The literature has been heavily influenced by Christianity. In the earlier centuries, religion played a major role, especially Christianity. So you'll find a lot of symbolism and references to the Old Testament, okay, which is the old version of the Bible. While this is not a specific characteristic of only American literature, I'm not saying that religion has influence only on American literature. I'm just saying that religion has influence also on American literature. British literature is also very heavily influenced by religion. You'll find, like I said, you'll find symbolisms and references not only in American works that you read or study in this course, but also in the British literature one. But just remember that American literature does not have this, it's not the only one that has this important characteristic. Okay. And also like India, US was also colonized. So they were also colonized for about 165, 167 years. So there is a heavy influence of that colonial rule. As we progress in the discussion, we will also see how this colonial rule kind of influenced the literature from the US. Okay, any questions so far from anybody? Okay, I'll very quickly go through the chat, okay? In case there are any questions until now, we will see. By Indians, literary work by Indians, Indian literature also includes this, common styles. We have already done this. Okay, Redmi 88 UL. Can you please change it to your real name, please? I can't call you Redmi 88 UL. So American dream is everyone get equal opportunities. Okay, that's a good definition.
Sir, how the religion influenced American literature?
Sorry, say that again.
How the religion influenced American literature?
We will see. That's our goal. That's our goal in the upcoming these things. So when I say religion influences American literature, I'm not saying that American writers wrote only about the Bible or the Vedas or something else. Okay, what I'm saying is the symbolism in American literature is heavily influenced by Christianity, which basically means there will be a lot of symbols in the books that we read or the stories that we talk about in this course. We'll talk about it. Okay, there are a lot of themes that are related to religion. That's all I mean. Okay, does that answer your question?
Okay, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now let's talk about what some of the recurring themes. Okay, we will stick to the course syllabus that is there in the course book. This is again, like I said, it's a discussion, and so far it's really good. Actually, you've been participating well. Okay, before we go into the major themes, let me make one point that I think is important. One can never separate history and literature. Somebody, when we were talking, I think it was Sridevi or somebody who said culture and history is part of our Indian literature. It's not just Indian literature, but any literature you talk about, you can never separate history and literature. They are inseparable, right? So when you think of American literature, also think of American history. Okay, I don't know how many of you know what America has gone through and that kind of stuff, but I would suggest you just do a quick watch of a quick video on American history just to know what the country has gone through in the past 300 years or so. That will not only give you knowledge about the US, but also will give you ways of linking that country's history with the literature. Okay, what has the country gone through and how it reflects in the literature of that particular time period. Okay, so when you have time this week, just go through a very quick video on American history, because my opinion is that history can never be separated from literature. They are very close to each other and they are tied to each other. Okay. Having made that point, we'll talk about the recurring themes in American literature. The first one is wandering heroes. What are wandering heroes? Why are they wandering here and there? And why are they called heroes? Now, what the book says is people leave their home, go to some other places and settle there. Okay. That explains the wandering part, where, you leave your home and then go somewhere else. So that's why you're called it wandering. But why are these people called heroes? Because people move. If you really look at even 21st century, people move all the time, even now. Like a lot of people go from India to US, UK, Australia, everywhere else. So can we call these people wanderers? Can we call these people heroes? If one of your cousins or somebody goes to US, you will not call him or her wanderer, and you will not call him or her hero, right? Or will you?
Yes.
Okay, Yasmin says yes, we call them wanderers and heroes. Yasmin, can you very
No,
quickly
no,
explain?
we don't call them
Yeah.
as heroes.
Okay, yeah.
Just
Okay,
wandering.
Meghna, yes. Meghna, okay. Yasmin says they are heroes because they face difficult situations. Okay, you're talking, Yasmin, what you're talking about is a specific set of people, right? But not everybody goes through, tough situations and find solutions and that way, right? I mean, most people go for, a better life, and then they do get a better life. So I agree with Meghna. We don't call them wanderers. We also don't call them heroes, right? They are just our cousins. That's it, right? Okay. Having said that, the general answer is no. The wandering heroes we are talking about here didn't know what was in store for them in the new place. Okay, that's the major difference. Now, somebody in 21st century is going from India to US. They know what to expect. They know what to do. They have to get to New Delhi, then they have to get to a flight, then they get down in New York or somewhere, then they have to take a cab, they have to go somewhere, and then they do their job or study or whatever. They know what to expect. Okay, but the wandering heroes that we are talking about here, they didn't know what to expect. They just left their homeland and then went to the new place without knowing what was in store for them. That is why they are, called wandering heroes. My favorite wandering hero is Captain Ahab in Herman Melville's Moby Dick. We'll talk about this novel. It's a huge book, but there is a person called Captain Ahab. We will look at this book closely when we do Unit 6, I think. But for now, remembering that wandering heroes is a major theme. Okay. The second theme that we'll talk about is adventurers. This is kind of self-explanatory. We know what adventure is, and then a person that does this adventure is called an adventurer. So a wandering hero just cannot be walking from one place to another and settle down, right? I mean, then they're not really a hero. So he or she will have to go through adventures during their journey. Now I'm talking about books like Mark Twain's Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. You have heard about that. Or Saul Bellows, The Adventures of Augie March. Exactly. Sujata, you're right. Huckleberry Finn. The Adventures of Augie March, Howard Pyle's Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. All these, the word adventure is there in the book name itself. The title itself has adventures in it. So,
The Gulliver Travels.
sorry, Sridevi, what was that?
The Gulliver Travels.
Gulliver's Travels. Yes, yeah. So, excuse me. There are a lot of American works that talk about adventures. Okay, so these are the adventurers that this particular theme is talking about. Now, this leads us to the next theme, pioneers. Can somebody explain what a pioneer is? Who is a pioneer, or what is a pioneer?
The one who discovers or invents something new. The first person who discovers or invents something.
Perfect definition. Yes. Okay. Can anybody else add to it? Is there anything else to add?
Which is useful to society, something, whatever they do. Maybe.
Sajid, again, can you please repeat it?
It should be, it will be useful to the society, whatever they invent.
Okay.
Then they are called pioneers.
Okay. Yeah. Sajid is saying it cannot be a useless invention, like which is personally okay, but then if it's not helping the society, then they are not a pioneer. Okay. Yasmin's definition kind of sort of sums it up. A person who is among the first to explore or develop a certain thing, they are called a pioneer.
Yes.
So the first people to settle in America are pioneers. Okay. Sujata says to explore in new things. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. The first person to develop a certain method is a pioneer. Okay, that's good. Now coming back to our theme.
Sir,
No.
sir, as it is related to wandering hero, so I believe a person who is moving to other country, a new country like that.
Yes. But see, yeah, very good. Very good observation. But see, if you go back to Yasmin's definition, she is only talking about the first person that does it. Right?
Yes.
After, let's say 2000 people move, then 2000 first person who is moving is not a pioneer anymore. That's Yasmin's definition, right?
Right.
So you'll have to think about it from a point of novelty. Okay. Is somebody doing it new? It might not be the first person.
First person.
It might not be the first person, Arshia. It can be like, the first 100 people who go, they are all pioneers because they all went in as a group. Yeah. Okay. But you're right. It is related to our wandering heroes. Now, coming back to our theme, our wandering heroes are going through adventures and becoming pioneers. Okay. Pioneers are looking for freedom and life fulfillment and this kind of stuff. Okay, good. Next one we will talk about is resourcefulness. What is resourcefulness? What do you think is resourcefulness?
Content.
Sorry, what was that?
The content, I mean, to write.
Content. Okay.
I mean, from the literature point of view.
Yeah. Okay. The content of the literature. Okay. Anything else? In general, what is resourcefulness? Somebody calls you very resourceful. What does that mean?
To overcome difficulties.
The ability to make your own decisions.
Okay.
Sir, am I audible to you? Hello?
Yes. Yeah, you're audible.
Right,
I just heard Sai Priya saying something.
Quick and clever.
Okay, clever. Okay.
To overcome difficulties.
No, sir. Quick and clever ways to overcome difficulties.
Okay, to overcome difficulties. Okay, perfect.
Resources are something what you have to sustain yourself. Resources are something what you have to sustain yourself in times of need or difficulty or whatever.
Okay, perfect, Rebecca. Okay, can we let Nayak speak, please? He's trying to speak.
Sir, needed things for living.
Needed things for living. Okay, that's one way. Okay. Let's go back to our theme. The ability to, like somebody said, the ability to find quick and clever ways to overcome issues, problems, or difficulties. That is resourcefulness. Now, example is, let's say you are at your home and then your gas cylinder is suddenly empty or something. Okay. If you can find a way to still cook food, that is resourcefulness. Okay. Even without a gas cylinder, somehow, I don't know how you will cook, but if you find out a way, then that is resourcefulness. Okay. From an American literature perspective, you can easily see this resourcefulness in Huckleberry Finn, okay, who lies to get out of his problems. So what he does is, now resourcefulness is not the right thing or wrong thing. We are not discussing right or wrong here. We are talking about what resourcefulness is. That's it. Okay. So Huckleberry Finn, what he does is he kind of lies and then gets out of his problems. He has a problem and he lies and then gets out of his problem. So he's very resourceful. So Finn's resourcefulness kind of brought him out of his troubles. Okay. Male companionship is another theme. Now, this is not the sexual companionship we are talking about here, but male friendship that is not sexual. Okay, we're not talking about two men in love or anything. We are talking about the male friendship that goes on. Now, going to an example I just gave, Moby Dick. We have two characters in that particular novel, Ishmael and Queequeg. We will talk about them later in Unit 6 or something. We have Huckleberry Finn and Jim. This might be something that you might be familiar with. Where we see this male companionship. They are friends. They are dependent on each other for things. They are dependent on each other for advices. They hang out together. This is the male companionship. So we will see this also as one of the themes when we look at Eugene O'Neill's Desire Under the Elms, where male companionship is one of the major themes of this play. But we will see that when we get there. But that's one major theme. Another theme is alienation. Alienation is not the aliens, or we are not talking about extraterrestrial animals here. We are talking about like moving from one place to another. We were talking about some people moving from India to, let's say, US or someplace, and then moving from one place to another. You'll have to adjust to the new place, right? I mean, it's not like you as an Indian would go into US and you would fit into their culture immediately on day one, minute one, right? You will have to get adjusted into the new culture, new people, everything, right? Now, while doing this, during that acclimatization phase, you will feel alienated, right? You will feel like, oh, I don't belong here. I mean, everything is new. That is the alienation that we are talking about. Okay. This is closely related to something called quest for identity, where people question, what am I? Who am I? Why am I here? What is this? This is also a very common theme in diaspora literature. What is diaspora literature? Literature written by people who are Indians, but then they are outside India.
So is it like carrying the same affections which we have for family, and then adapting in other country?
Okay, that's an interesting take, but I would say it's not that much. It's not so much to do with the family and affections, Arshia, but then it's more about acclimatizing yourself or adjusting yourself with the target
and
culture.
adapting their culture.
Yeah, their culture. Yes, their culture. So, and then as part of that, you will feel like, if I was in India, I would have eaten dal rice or something by now. But now I have to eat pizza and then, whatever, right? You feel alienated because you are in a new culture and then you feel like you don't fit in that culture initially. Eventually, you will get used to it. But that alienation is what it doesn't even have to be. That going from India to US is just an example. Okay, it doesn't have to be US and India. It can be anything.
It is like homesickness, sir?
Kind of homesickness. Okay, yeah. Homesickness is part of the alienation process. Yes.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Then we'll talk about isolation. Alienation leads to a sense of isolation. Characters have no sense of belonging, like I said, and they reject society as if they don't fit in the society. They get isolated. They are like, this society is not for me. I'm going to get isolated, and then they get isolated. Now, there is a wonderful, wonderful book that we will talk about in the future units, which leads them to living alone and not being part of the society. We'll talk about this in William Faulkner's Light in August, and see there's a wonderful character called Joe Christmas, who is the subject of this alienation. Okay, we will talk about this a little later. Okay. Then there is something called innocence and experience.
In Hindi, sir, in Hindi it is like alag karna, something like that.
अलग रहना कि अलग करना है?
अलग करना and alag रहना. It's like isolation, alag.
Yes. Yes. Alag is, separate, right? Not isolation. Alag is separate, right? Like Yasmin is saying, it's separation, not so much of isolation. Isolation comes not only from external factors, but you yourself can think that, you're not part of this society. I don't like this society, so I'll get isolated.
Like feeling alone.
Feeling alone. Okay, that is part of.
Alone.
Yeah. Okay. So Priya, that's a good this thing. Okay, innocence and experience. What this means is Ernest Hemingway is, again, my old man. There's a young boy named Joe who kind of idolizes his father. who is a horse jockey, and then he starts off with innocence and then later becomes experienced. Okay, we all do this, right? I mean, we start off with innocence where we don't know anything, but then later, as we progress in life, we kind of gain experiences, and then we experience certain things, good or bad, and then that kind of changes our way of thinking, right? So innocence and experience is also, this is kind of, it starts at a certain level and then goes towards experience. It starts at innocence, knowing nothing, and it goes to experience, where you experience things. That is another theme. Okay, any questions so far? Let me quickly go back to the chat and then see if there are any questions. They face difficult situations. Huckleberry Finn, Moby Dick is an escort whose support. Sujata will talk about Moby Dick. I'm not sure what you mean by Ahab is an escort who support, but we will talk about it when we talk about that particular work. Okay, Yasmin separation, we talked about it. No connection with people, Sujata. Yes, that is true. No connection. Habiba says no connection. Sandeep says innocence means. I'm not sure, Sandeep, if that's a question or you are making a statement. So if you can elaborate on that, that'll be good. Innocence basically means
statement, sir.
Oh, statement. Okay, okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. No questions so far. Okay. Moving alone is also called isolation. Shankaraya is saying that. Yes, that's correct. Okay, let's just move to the next slide. There is one more or a few more recurring themes. One is the racial problem. Now, I don't have to tell you really what racial problem is. We experience this in and out, not just in US or UK or Australia or anywhere, but we experience this day in and day out. This is a theme that is, again, not specific to American literature, but it is a universal theme, I think. Okay, America has been described initially as a melting pot. Okay, what is melting pot? Basically, you put everything like a soup. Okay, you put everything in
It
it.
is
But
everywhere
then,
around the world, no, sir?
yes, it's
The racial
everywhere around
problem.
the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why it's a universal theme. It's not specific to American literature, actually. Okay. It has been like I was saying, America has been described as a melting pot. What does that mean? It's like a soup where you put in water, you put in vegetable stock, you put in all the vegetables, and then you make a soup out of it. But then the Native Americans, blacks, etc., do not feel that they are part of the American society, even though they are in America. They don't feel part of the society. So then there was a new term that was used, salad bowl. Okay. With melting pot, what happens is everything mixes with each other. And then at the end of it, if you kind of sort of make a soup, you cannot say which one is tomato and which one is carrot, right? Everything is, it's the same. In that, you cannot have proper identity of each person, like Native American, black, or whatever it is. You cannot have a specific identity. Then there was a term used, salad bowl. Like if you really look at salad, you will have carrots, tomatoes, onions, and whatever you have in a salad. They're all there in the same bowl or plate, but they still have their individual identity, right? I mean, you can point to something and then say, this is tomato, this is carrot, this is that, this is paneer, whatever it is, right? Now, if you look closer to home, Shashi Tharoor, he's a politician. I'm sure most of you might know him. Shashi Tharoor compares Indian society with a thali. Okay.
Yes.
What he says is you will have roti, dal, sambar, curd, rice, and everything in the same plate, but with their own identity. Right? Dal cannot be mixed as sambar, sambar cannot be called as roti, roti cannot be called as rice. Okay, it's a mixture.
Unity in diversity.
Yes, unity in diversity. Yes. Okay, somebody just asked me, can you explain melting pot again? Melting pot, basically what I'm saying is you put in multiple ingredients into a soup. Let's say you're making a soup. You put in, vegetable stock and whatever. Okay, you put everything into a melting or a pot, and then you boil it, and then at the end you kind of grind it, and then you come up with a soup. But after you get the soup, can you tell which one is tomato and which one is carrot and which one is peas and which one is that and which one is this? You can't, right? Because everything is mixed together. Even though there are individual elements in the soup, you can't give them individual identity. Okay, that's why they came up with salad plate, where you do have individual elements, but then you can also individually identify them, saying this is tomato, this is carrot, this is onion, this is that. So that is what I meant. Okay. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry, I'm not sure who asked that question. Okay. Okay. And yeah,
Sir,
I talked about.
these recurring themes are all like the racial problem, crime and violence, all are universal, right? It is not related only to American literature.
Yes, especially the racial problem is not
Yes.
specific to American literature. Okay, wandering heroes, pretty much everything is universal. But then the reason why we are talking in specific about American literature is these are more prominent in American literature than in any other literature. That's why we are, the book is calling them out and then saying these are the major themes. Okay, I will tell you why these are important actually. Okay. Then another example is like, people didn't like melting pot, then they didn't like, salad plate, and then, Shashi Tharoor's thali, this thing. Then people said, okay, maybe it's like a quilt. Okay, quilt is like, a bed covering made of different pieces. Like small pieces are sewn together, and then, it's made a quilt. Okay. Now, the whole point is, unlike Japanese or Chinese culture, which is homogeneous through centuries, right? American society is not like that. American society is built with immigrants. Okay, it's not just Americans, but then a lot of Indians are there, a lot of the other country people are there, Mexicans are there, and from South American continent, everybody is there. A lot of people are there. So just like in a quilt, right? Everybody has individual identity, but everybody is connected. Now, you understand what a quilt is? It's there on the screen actually. It's kind of like a razai kind of thing where, you take individual pieces and then sew them together, and then they make a big blanket and that kind of stuff. Okay. So in this, everybody has individual identity, but then they're also connected. I mean, you can't have individual pieces of a bed sheet. They have to be connected. So that's another way of looking at it. Okay. Anyway, racial problem, if you go back to the history, plantation culture, slaves were brought from Africa to work in cotton plantations. Then, the interesting part of US is America got independence in 1776. Okay, July 4th, 1776 is when they got independence, but slavery was only abolished in 1865. Okay, so a solid 100 years, they still had slavery, even after they got independence. Okay, so that kind of sort of influenced the writings of that particular century. If you look at late 18th century and early 19th century, you will have severe influence. You can see a very major influence of slavery in the writings. We will talk about it when we come to that unit. Okay. Crime and violence, different items connected with one only. Yes, Shweta, that's right. Okay, crime and violence. Again, Ashia will agree. This is a universal theme.
Universal, sir.
American literature. But wherever there is war for independence, there will be violence, right? I mean, there is, like we just saw, there is violence involved in slavery also. I mean, it's not like, everybody got slaves into the US and then all the slaves were happy. It is never that way, right? I mean, there is violence. And then there are cases of, it's not just violence that is external, but there is also cases of domestic violence where, the one spouse is abusing the other spouse. So violence is a very common theme in American literature. Okay. One very interesting thing. Somebody, I think it was Srujan, who asked how religion influences literature. I'm not sure who asked, but then, okay. This can kind of sort of give you a hint on why.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this talks about the Protestant ethic. What is Protestant ethic? It is title of this theme actually should be the Protestant work ethic. Okay. It shouldn't be Protestant ethic. There's nothing called Protestant ethic. It is Protestant work ethic. What that means is if you work hard, you will succeed. That's their mantra. Okay. There's nothing called smart work. Basically, they say Protestant work ethic basically says you have to work as hard as possible in your life and you will succeed. We will look at this as an example in O'Neill's Desire Under the Elms when we talk about it. There's a character called Ephraim Cabot who, what he does is he cultivates a land that is not arable. So he cultivates a land which is barren. Okay. And then he converts it into crop growing land by his hard work. Now, Protestant work ethic is basically saying that it doesn't matter what you're doing, give your best, do hard work, and then, you will succeed. And Protestant work ethic is also called like Calvinist work ethic. That's another name. It basically underscores discipline, hard work. Pujita, can you repeat what you just said? Okay, never mind. Okay, we will talk about, when we talk about Puritans and the other groups, Srijan, we will have a clearer idea on how religion will influence literature. Okay, just hold on until that time. Okay, next is man versus nature. Again, this is American literature is mostly not concerned with the usual love stories, actually. Okay, it's not just, romance and this kind of stuff, especially, in the previous centuries, but more concentrated on man versus nature. Again, I will go back to Moby Dick, where Captain Ahab goes into the middle of the ocean just to get revenge on a white whale. Okay, it's basically that raw revenge of man versus nature. Okay, eventually he will die. That's a different story. The nature wins, but still. That's something that is a major theme. Okay, the next one we will talk about is symbol and allegory. What does that mean? Symbolism is, if I have to give you an example, do you know what Scarlet Letter is? Nathaniel Hawthorne's. Anyway, there's a novel called Scarlet Letter where there's this protagonist or a character called Hester Prynne in this story, and she has an extramarital affair. Okay, she marries somebody and then she has an affair with somebody else. She's sentenced to wear the letter A for the rest of her life. Okay, the symbol is built into her, like on her neck. This letter A is a symbol that stands for adultery. Okay, she's committed adultery, which is one of the sins according to religious dogmas. That's why the letter A is kind of inscribed on her. Okay, which is a word for having this is because she committed adultery, which is having an extramarital affair. Okay, these kind of symbols, metaphors, allegories are abundant in American literature. They are not just in Hester Prynne, or they're not just in Hawthorne's novels. They are everywhere. You just have to look for them and you will find tons of them. Okay. Now, even though I think these are the only themes that the book lists, but let us talk a little bit about the modern trends. Okay, these things are okay. These things are there forever, for centuries. These have been themes. Okay, but let us talk about the modern trends in these themes. All that we have discussed until now are still themes in American literature. I'm not saying these are old or archaic or anything. They are still themes in American literature, but there are some recent ones that are not listed in the book. For example, mental health is one theme. Okay, that American authors are writing more on. Okay, they talk about, authors now write about topics like anxiety, depression, addiction, this kind of stuff, which they didn't write in the previous centuries. Even if they wrote, it was not this prevalent. Okay, because mental health was not one of the major concerns of people in the prior centuries. Another theme that is a very big concern right now, which was not a concern in the previous centuries, is climate change. So there is a lot of American fiction that is coming out that deals with climate change. Now, why do authors have to write about climate change? Because they are using literature as a platform to raise this awareness on global warming and climate change. They're not just doing it for fun. They are just doing it so that people read it and they use it. They're basically using literature as a platform to raise awareness in people about climate change, and then how global warming is impacting us and then the future generations. Of course, identity continues to be a major theme in American literature and every other literature that you can talk about, be it social identity or individual identity. It's the same thing. Even if you look at Indian literature, there's more Dalit identity, Dalit consciousness related books that are coming out, which is a social identity in India, as well as, at a world level or at a universal level, it's LGBTQ identity, it's your sexual orientation identity. That is one of the major themes. That is one of the major themes that is being written on. So, as students of literature, we should also think of how literature reflects society and not just, reading a book and then, enjoying the story. I mean, these are wonderful stories. I understand that. But also, as students of literature, we should think on how literature reflects society, and the vice versa also, how ways in which it influences society. When you read a book, how does that book, or in a particular time period, if somebody writes something, how is that influencing the society? And whatever is happening in society, how is that influencing? Like, the latest example is the pandemic, right? We had the pandemic a couple of years ago, and then suddenly now we have a lot of literature written, or a lot of fiction written on pandemic. Okay, so whatever happens in society kind of sort of percolates into literature, and whatever is written in literature also influences the society. Okay, any questions? Okay, let me quickly go through the chat and then see if there are any questions. Quilt is Razai. Yes, that's true. Hard work to get success. That's okay. Okay, all right. Okay, then now we'll talk about how to answer questions from this unit. This is, yes, Nayak. Please go ahead.
No, sir, I don't have any questions.
Okay. We will try and, yeah, Bhagyashree, hold on with that question, symbol and allegory. Actually, instead of me explaining, you will explain it. I have a little task for everybody at the end of the class. So we'll come to that, okay? You will know what symbol and allegory are. Anyway, continuing, we'll try and see how to answer questions from this unit. Okay. One of the questions can be, how is American literature different from other literatures? You can start the answer by, saying what is, or explaining what literature is, then explaining what American literature is, and then talking about the major themes, which are there in American literature. Okay. And then there can be another question. These are only indicative questions. Okay. I'm not saying these will come in the exam or anything. These are only indicative questions on what we already talked about. So another question can be, discuss 3 recurring themes in American literature and show their interrelationships. Can anybody mention 3 themes that we talked about? Any 3?
So, man versus nature.
Man versus nature.
Racial problem.
Okay.
And the Protestant ethic.
Okay, Protestant ethic. Okay, Yasmin says adventure. Okay, adventurers. Actually, we talked about adventurers. Okay. Male companionship.
Pioneer, alienation, isolation, crime and violence.
Okay, perfect. Sujata, because you mentioned the most themes, can you relate 2 of these? Like, how is one theme related to another theme? Any theme. Zeba says resourcefulness. Yes. Okay, Shilpa says symbol is okay. Anyway, yeah, all right answers. Now, I just have to tell or make a point here. The reason why this particular unit is important from an exam point of view, or even for a general course point of view, is that all these themes you will see multiple times in the next units. Okay, every one of this theme will come up in the next units. Okay, so to understand the next units, understanding this unit is very, very important. Okay, so I will request you all to read the chapter or unit from the course book without fail as soon as possible. Okay, because you will forget by next week. You will forget this. So instead of waiting, just read it's hardly like 3 or 4 pages, I think. Just go through the chapter, and then if you have any questions, we can discuss it next week. But if not, I would urge that you go ahead and then, you do the reading and understand this, because these are very important for next these things. Okay. Let's very quickly recap. Very quickly recap. What is Protestant work ethic? Anybody?
One who works hard can achieve a success.
Okay, perfect. Isolation, what does that mean?
Feeling alone.
Feeling alone is part of isolation, Uma, but what else?
Keeping away from all external and internal factors.
Okay, perfect. Keeping away from external and internal. Okay, perfect. One universal theme in the themes we discussed?
Crime and violence.
Crime and violence. Perfect. Anything else that can be universal? Racism.
Racial problem, sir.
Racial
problem.
Yes,
Racial problem. The racial problem.
Yes, that's right. Okay, this is not to test you. Okay, these recap questions are not to test you. This is only to recap and then just make sure that we are all on the same page, because like I said, these terms that we use are very subjective. Okay, so it depends on who you ask what the right answer is or the answer is. So we don't have to get onto the same page, But then what is more important is we understand everybody's perspective. That's why these recap questions are there. These are not to test you. Okay. Let's move to unit 2. What time is it? Okay,
Sir,
12:50.
sir,
Yeah.
just a quick recap on literature, what literature means.
Okay. The broad definition of literature is basically anything that is written. Okay, like Srujan said, I think it is anything that is written. But the definition of literature. Sorry, Sandeep, can you go ahead? Okay, no problem. Okay, so Ashia, the thing is, literature initially started out with the definition as anything that is particularly written. Okay, that is the operational definition at that time. But later, as the time changed, the technology has changed, the way literature has been defined also changed. Okay, slowly, steadily, anything that kind of goes from one generation to another through oral practices is also called literature. Like imagine, some kind of tribal area in India. Okay, they must be having some folk tales, right? We cannot say that those folk tales are not literature unless they are written. Okay, they are also literature, even though they are oral. Okay, so that's one opinion. Then, as technology increased or advanced, we had, internet coming up and then ebooks and then videos and everything is also called literature. And we'll go back to what Shujan initially said. He also said movies are literature. Why is he saying movies as literature? There is a popular opinion that says movies can be considered as text. Not the typical text that we talk about, not something that is written on a piece of paper, but movies these days in research, especially, are considered texts. Okay. Why? Because they can also be analyzed just like we are analyzing literature. The methods and methodology might be different, but they are different methods and methodologies that help us analyze movies also as a text. That's why it is also called literature. Okay, it can be called video literature or digital literature or whatever you call it, but that's also called literature. Okay, does that answer your question, Arshia?
Yes, sir. Sir, I just wanted to tell you that literature, it's a written thing which happened in past. It's like it's almost related to history. History is something, it's a past. So the things happen from early ages till now in written. That is called literature.
Okay. Okay. So you are right in a certain way. Okay. You are right that it also it deals with history, but that is not the only thing that it's dealing with. Okay. Now, what about, let's say I, as an author, write a fiction novel about a man going onto Mars. Okay. That has not happened yet, right? That is not history. Okay. Whether we will go to Mars or not is a different story. Whether that will really happen in the future is also a different story. But my fiction is also literature, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be, yes means a science fiction. It doesn't necessarily have to be history. You're right that it is also history, but it's not just that. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. And Srinivas said something. Just any form be expressed, written or oral, or in any method like songs, movies, etc. Very good. Zeba, you're asking how does literature help in shaping a nation? Anybody has an answer for Zeba? How does literature help in shaping a nation? Yes, Nayak, you were saying something?
No, sir, just
Okay. Asad says by inspiring written works. So he's basically saying written works that are inspiring to people can change their thought process. That's what you're saying, right, Asad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Does that answer the question? Okay, let me know if that answers the question. That's a good observation, actually. Okay, literature provokes the feeling of patriotism, Meghna. Not all literature provokes feeling of patriotism. some literature does provoke the feeling of patriotism, especially if it is written about, independence or that kind of stuff. Okay, good. Okay, let's very quickly, you have, this class is until what, 1:15, is it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
I will
sir.
take it until 1:10, okay? Around 10 more minutes, and then I will leave you so that you have a very good break before your next class. When is your next class?
1:30, sir.
1:30. Okay, okay. You only have 15 minutes for lunch. Okay, okay. I will finish it. I'll try and finish it around 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, let's start with the next unit. We will not finish the next unit. We will talk about it in detail tomorrow, but then we will talk about Native American literature in the next unit. And this is where somebody asked a question saying, how can oral culture be termed literature? We will talk about that. Now, there Native American, and somebody also asked what is the difference between Indian American and then, the regular American. Native American, Indian American, and a derogatory term, Red Indians. People don't use that term anymore. So please, I would say don't use it. But that is also a term that is used to refer to Native Americans who were the initial inhabitants of the American land. Okay, this is before the modern American came and then took away the land. Okay, these are the Native Americans. Now, Native Americans are kind of sort of, they're not equivalent, but they are kind of sort of, just for our understanding, they are kind of sort of, their practices their practices are similar to our oral practices and tribal practices. Okay, then I'm not saying they are tribes. They are, yes, Sujata, they can't, not, it's not that they can't write. They don't have written literature. That's all. Okay, now that is changed in the 21st century. We will talk about how it changed in the 21st century. It's all oral literature. Yes, you're right. Native American literature is all oral culture, oral literature. They have hundreds of languages, but then they did not have writing systems for these languages. So they just spoke these languages. So all the literature, oral literature, went from one generation to another generation through orality. So through word of mouth. Now, there are some themes that are listed here. We will talk about those themes next time. I mean, in tomorrow's class. But before I leave you all today, I have a small task to give. Before tomorrow's class, can you check the difference between allegory and symbol? I think, I'm not sure who asked that question, but somebody was asking that in the chat box. But I would want you to actually look at what allegory and symbol is. The reason why specifically I'm talking about these two things is because these are not specific to American literature, but understanding these terms will help us in understanding literature in general, in a better way. Okay.
Sir, allegory is a moral story that uses animal characters.
Okay.
And symbolism, it represents a particular symbol. For example, whenever you see a stethoscope, you remember a doctor.
Okay. Okay, good. Anybody else? Do you want to add to what Arshay is saying? That's a good definition, by the way. What is an allegory and what is a symbol? Arshay, any example of allegory?
Allegory is animal form.
Yeah, but can you give an example? Is there any example that you can think of?
Yeah, animal form. Animal form is written by, I didn't remember the writer's name, sir.
Oh, Animal Farm. Okay. George Orwell's Animal Farm.
Yeah,
Okay.
George Orwell's. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Got it.
Sir,
Okay,
Statue
anything
of
else?
Liberty. Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty is a symbol or is it an allegory?
Allegory.
It's symbol.
Huh. It's a symbol. I would agree with symbol. Why is it a symbol and not an allegory?
So you can take it as narrative of a symbol.
Sir, all the Panchatantra stories come under allegory.
Excellent. Yes, that is what I was looking for actually. From an Indian perspective, Panchatantra stories, all Panchatantra stories are allegories. Yeah, thanks, Yasmin. Yeah, Shilpa, you're right. It's a narrative of a symbol, but then, it can be called anything, right? Narrative of a symbol can be called anything. Allegory specifically has animal characters usually, and then it has some kind of moral at the end. Okay, it just doesn't leave you open-ended. Okay, it'll have some moral or some story or some good or bad thing that they describe. Okay, that is what is an allegory. So going back to, I think, Asad, who said Statue of Liberty. Statue of Liberty is a symbol because it symbolizes liberty, right? It was gifted by France to US, so it symbolizes liberty. Okay, the statue holding that flame in hand, that symbolizes liberty. Okay, it is not an allegory because the statue, one, is not an animal, and second thing is it's not telling you anything about good or bad. There is no morality included in that. Make sense, Asad?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Now that Arshia has given, the definitions, I would give two other terms then. What is the difference between a story and a plot? Can you, if you have the answer, don't tell me now. We will discuss this in tomorrow's call. What is the difference between a story and a plot? And if you can just find out, you can Google. I mean, it's not like, you have to read a book or anything. You can Google. All we want to know is what is a story and a plot. Again, these terms are not specific to American literature. I'm only mentioning this because you are in the first year of MA, and then understanding these particular terms will help you in understanding other papers also, not just American literature. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions that I can answer for now? Or if not, we'll take a pause here for today and we'll continue in the next class. In the next class, what we'll do is we will move into Unit 2, 3, and 4 of the course book. And then we will see. If we have time, then we will start the other one. Okay?
Sir, can you give us important questions for examination point of view?
Okay, what we will try and do is, see, there is nothing called important questions from a exam point of view because the whole book is about 200 pages or less than 200 pages, right? So there's nothing called important, but we will talk about, let's first finish the course. Okay, in the last class, we will talk about the important topics. Okay, how about that?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes,
Meghna here. Yeah, is there any PPT regarding this class, sir?
I do have the PPT.
If possible, would you please share?
Okay, I'll
that?
try and share that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all for joining the class, and I'll see you all tomorrow at the same time around 11:45. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
రాయు రాయు రెండు చేతులతో అట్లా రెండు చేతులతో రాసుకోవాలి. What about the third meeting?